higher on poor people?
Okay. Before I answer...
Just a little light question.
No, that's fine. I mean, I've been asked it many times.
I'm sure.
But before I answer it, I want to say to Ming that she should not have felt as if she was on trial, but had she been, she would have been declared innocent by now. Okay, regressive taxes. So, well, first of all, I'll say this. The burdens of excessive consumption of sugar, and they are manifold, but let's just stick to obesity and diabetes, that's enough, are disproportionately borne by people at the lower end of the income stratum. And the fact that taxes on sugar would be regressive is true. And it is true because, in part, people at the lower end of the income stratum consume a basket of groceries that is disproportionately composed of highly processed foods. And when you put those two things together, what it suggests is that the tax, while regressive, is also responsive to the health burdens that are borne disproportionately by people in that state of affairs. I don't think that we should imagine that taxes on sugar or sweetened sugar beverages, which I have advocated both here and elsewhere, are going to be a solution to this problem. I think that they might be one arrow in a quiver, but that there are many more things that we need to do to think through the issues. And although I had to be brief at the end of my talk, I mentioned something that I think is actually much more important than it appears, and that is shifting norms and expectations of behavior in the direction of more moderation in the consumption of sugar. And although people may think that that's sort of a soft response to a hard problem, the experience with tobacco and cigarettes and smoking would suggest otherwise. The norms relating to the consumption of tobacco have shifted dramatically. When I was an undergraduate at the University of North Carolina, and not just because it was North Carolina, when class was over, the floor would be littered with cigarette butts, produced both by students and faculty. And it's unthinkable today to imagine, you know, that state of affairs would pertain. But I remind my class, because they're too young now to remember, that Minnesota passed legislation called the Minnesota Clean Air
Act.
Indoor Air Act. The embodiment in that legislation of the shift in norms with respect to smoking indoors has dramatically changed the nature of our experience in buildings over a period of about 25 years or so. So I think that these types of changes in expectations and norms may be much more significant in the long run than taxes.
Can I just make a comment about that? I agree with you, but I feel like it makes me think of an alternative change we need to consider, or alternative difference between what's happening with sugar and what's happened with tobacco. And that is, I think a lot of the policies that were put in place that we've seen happen over, of almost more than a 50-year span to get to the point where people were, cutting back on the use of tobacco products, or smoking at least, that was born out of a bunch of different policy changes that were put in place, limits on advertising, taxes, like you suggested, public health campaigns, all that were done and rolled out at various times. And I think a lot of those efforts helped stop people from picking up the habit of smoking. I'm not quite sure how effective they were in causing people to quit smoking, but they did prevent a generation from starting to smoke. So my question to the panel, to everyone, is When we compare this to sugar, we have to keep in mind that, kids start smoking cigarettes when they're 13, 14, 15 years old, right? That's when they get exposed. We're seeing babies born basically drinking sugar. There's, pediatricians that have to tell parents, do not put Coca-Cola in a baby bottle. So we're having children exposed to sugar essentially the minute they're born. And I guess my question is, I don't know if we can draw such a tight correlation between what happened with tobacco and what hopefully will happen with sugar for those reasons.
I completely agree with you. I'd cut this out of my presentation, but as you just said, the first taste that a baby mammal experiences in life is galactose in the mother's milk. And that's why I refer to it as a primal preference. I don't think the preference for cigarettes is primal at all. And so it should be treated differently. I think there are limited analogies between the two, which include the category of the possible utility of taxation. But apart from that, they certainly are different issues.
Yeah, so regarding the tax, there is a study published in British Medical Journal, I think 10 years ago, showing that poor communities, poor individuals actually benefit more from the soda tax in terms of reducing the sugar sweetened beverage consumption. This study was conducted in Mexico when they implemented the soda tax nationwide, and then look at low-income communities versus high-income communities. So the reduction was much greater in the low-income community compared to high-income communities. So even though this, considered as kind of a punishment for poor people, but the benefits I think they got actually overweigh, this potential downside.
That just strengthens the point that I was making. I don't know if that was Drewinski's work or not, but there's an economist at the University of Washington who makes a compelling point, which is that people who are working with very limited budgets, when they go to the store, want to buy foods that provide the highest ratio of calories to price, and that means that they're going to be drawn to densely processed food, and to simplify this, I call it you got $1, what do you want, Twinkies or carrots? And if we decide that we're going to tax sweetened foods, it might be appropriate to use the revenues from the tax to subsidize fruits and vegetables.
Professor Bosma, did you want to comment?
Yeah, we had talked a lot about taxation, but there's also a thing like regulation. So the government can also put limits on the amount of salt or sugar, whatever, in our food. And I think that's also a way to reduce the amount of sugar in our food. And the other thing is that sugar taxation, we should not be misguided, is also targeting the food industry itself. So not directly the consumer, but also the food industry. And that's what happened in Great Britain with the beverage industry. The beverage industry was targeted, so it was a premium of the beverage industry to reduce the amount of sugar in their beverages. So I think I think you need to target the sugar taxation, you need to target regulation, but if you do it well and consciously, I think it can have serious results.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to compliment En-Ming another time.
Again,
because as I listen to you, not that I feel guilty, about criticizing sugar, I don't, but many accomplished artists, and you certainly are one, are very analytical. And when I listened to your talk, I was fascinated by the rigor with which you broke down the analysis of taste and pleasure and preference. I thought it was splendid.
thank you.
Not Splenda, splendid. Sorry, that was such a cheap joke. I wanted to observe that as I think about the question of taxing sugar, I mean, I didn't realize I had to tax Kraft macaroni and cheese, right? And I know that that wouldn't be the way the tax operates. But I mean, I think your point, Professor Bosma, is really important, that the amount of work that one has to do to avoid added sugar in pizza or macaroni and cheese or all of these things that the parent with the dollar is buying, thinking they're buying a good meal for their child, is to me heartbreaking. And is there a way to think about that? And then I have a question for you. Go ahead, Ford. Just knock that one out of the park.
You're asking me?
Well, sure, or actually anyone. But I mean, seriously, how do we think about what Professor Bosma just described? Please.
Maybe it is looking at labeling and somehow, I mean, we do so many ad campaigns and such. What if we were to get consumers to understand the information is there on the label. You just have to read it.
Except that that's part of the problem, right? Is that I don't have that much time. I'm in the grocery store with my 3 kids and they're all crying. And I have to read the label on the macaroni and cheese to know I'm not getting too much sugar.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like the burden. I'm hearing Professor Bosma say, we need to put some of the burden on food industries.
Well, I would say, we need some more clarity with the labeling. I think for sure we have the nutrition facts panel, which has a lot of information, but like you're saying, the average person doesn't feel like sifting through all this information while they're just trying to go buy some groceries real quick. I really feel that having, front of package labeling that just clearly states this contains sugar, yes or no. Or to add to that, I would go further and say this contains sweetener. Because I think that the risk we run by talking about reducing sugar is that the food companies, and they're already doing it, are just going to put in more artificial sweeteners and other types of alternative sweeteners that don't count as added sugar, but we know that they're still affecting our metabolic health, they're still affecting the addiction for sure. And just because they're fewer calories or no calories, it doesn't necessarily make them safe or better for us. So that's where
it's misleading.
It is misleading. It exactly is misleading.
I'm sorry.
Now
they all want to talk.
Some economists like to talk about consumer sovereignty and sort of object to the idea that we should regulate markets and that, given appropriate information through labels and so on, consumers can make their own choices. I reject that. I don't think consumers are sovereign. I think that they're constantly bombarded by highly sophisticated manipulative advertising and influence peddlers of various kinds. In the tobacco wars, again recognizing that they're not entirely analogous, one thing that was very significant in the United States, because we're such a litigious country, is what lawyers call tort liability, meaning suits assessed damages to the tobacco companies, which everyone remembers. And I think that similar strategies are being developed in connection with the food industry now. Frank Chalupta, who's done a lot of the work comparing tobacco and sweetened soda beverages, is probably paid a lot of money as an expert witness in those cases. But I think that the legal process is going to be breathing down the neck of a lot of food companies in the next few years, and I personally think that that's fine.
I want to pick up a different strand here that picks up on your talk, Chef Shu, which has to do with the matter of tasting. I'm struck by the fact that when you're an elementary school child in France, you lunch as a class and you learn how to taste. Same in Italy. Same in many countries probably around the globe, that learning how to taste things is a part of your education. I always tease my liberal arts colleagues here that the only time that you will that taste is involved in the curriculum here is if you have to lick this one rock in a geology class. Now, I slowly, and my colleague Laura says we don't even lick them anymore. We ask them to say what it would taste like if you did lick it, right? But we are starting to change that. There are classes now in food studies. I'm working with a group of students right now where we are tasting things and we are exploring it. And it's sobering to me what a profound experience it is to taste something for the first time. And we quite literally aren't very good at it. We don't know how. So I'm wondering, as we think about cultural changes, about the ways in which learning how to taste would transform and would enable us, for instance, to say, oh my, I think 2 bites of that exquisite thing with the tangerines is enough.
But, you know, in Europe, it's different. In Europe, meals are different. Meal times are different. So your main meals usually fall into the earlier hours. So you're eating your, what we would call lunch is actually dinner. You're taking, like in Spain, your 2 hours of siesta, but that's your main meal time. And it's the same thing in France. The main meal is in the middle of the day, then something really light in the evening. So we rush here. We walk down the street with our muffin and our coffee. We are running here and there, just putting food in our mouth. We're not thinking about our food as much. So just in that time factor that we are always as a culture on the go, we miss out in the experience. And you know, a lot of families don't do family meals anymore. So that time when you sit down as a family, discuss, eat, cook together or something like that, not all families do that now. So these are big differences in the culture. And also, how important is food to you? So many, you know, I'm Chinese. Chinese live to eat. That's it. It's very simple. It's true. So if you know, in a lot of America, it's just not something that people, you know, they just want to eat because they have to. You know, there are different ways of addressing food and how we approach food.
Do you have any thoughts about, one moment, about how if a parent were to say, I would like to actually educate my child in tasting. Do you have any suggestions for maybe parents in the audience to say, what does it look like to learn to taste?
Go to a class and learn how to cook. I think that's a really good start. Understanding where the food, and it's start to finish. You know, a lot of farms do programs where they take the guests out, show them how the products are grown, and you know, if you don't have that opportunity, there are a lot of television shows that are really excellent. Yes, and then they show how the products are grown, what to do with the products, and they discuss in length the product itself. So then if children understand that, and then they understand where the food comes from, what to do with the food, and they're tasting as they're going with that hands-on approach. This is very important. And then you start to develop that understanding of what food is and how it can be used and how it can be used for good.
Thanks. Professor Hu.
Yeah, so a question for Amin. I think the question I think many people have asked is whether our taste bud can be retrained. So Ford mentioned earlier, humans are hardwired for sweet taste, for salty taste, for survival. I mean, that of course make a lot of sense. But currently, I think, especially in the US, people have very, very strong desire, taste preference for high-intensity sweet food, very salty food. It almost become part of American food culture.
Yes.
And the kids that grew up in this culture, they have very strong taste preference for salty and sweet food as well. So the question is, can we start with children to retrain their taste bud, make them have less preference for...
You know, there's a cultural aspect to that. And, you know, always same thing, as a Chinese person with a Chinese family who only cares about food, I would come home and I'd be like, hey, I made this great dessert. Taste it and tell me what you think. What is the failed? It's always the same response. Oh, I love that. It's not too sweet. No. That's not what I'm asking. I want to know about the dessert. Taste, texture, all of this stuff. Not how sweet it is, but it's that gauge, because we don't consume, and we're just, I guess, born like that we are very sensitive to sweet. But then, of course, now I'm Americanized and I can handle more sweetness, but I feel it. So taking it backwards, and I'll say this about my husband is American, he has a very high threshold for sweet and salt. And like, I'm hiding the salt. I'm just like, you gotta stop this. I don't bring candy or any sweets into the house. But he'll find it somewhere, and I'll be like, "You just ate a whole bag of M&Ms." It's like, but it's that, if it were a half-sweet M&M, I guarantee it wouldn't work. But I don't know what you do about that, though, like retraining.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, biologically, I feel like the taste bud can be retrained. I mean, this is learned experience. The taste, smell, flavor, as you mentioned earlier, it's learned experience. Because when I grew up in China, never had cheese or yogurt before. When I come to the States, I hate cheese in the beginning because, it's so foreign to me. But gradually I become really like it. I mean, the taste, the flavor, and the smell, everything. And this is also true for other more Western food, and like olive oil or olives. But for sweet, very high intensity sweet taste and salty taste, I feel like if we, the product reformulation can be very important because you don't have to tell people that you cut the amount of salt or sugar by 1/3 or even 1/2. And in some experiments, they showed that using this stealth health approach, so one full sugar, another one half sugar or 2/3 sugar, most people cannot tell the difference when they taste it. So this kind of stealth health approach through product reformulation may work better than, telling people, oh, don't eat that, don't eat this.
I think that would be a solution that is a reasonable solution, that if we were to have a policy where the food industry was told that they needed to just slow walk the reduction of the sweetness of our foods over the course of several years, not, cutting it by 50% in 1 year, but maybe 5-10% a year, people wouldn't notice. And I think that that's the way to do it.
Well, that's what FDA is doing with the salt reduction strategy.
Exactly.
It's voluntary, so I'm not sure how many companies are going to do that.
Right.
Interesting point. It's notable, isn't it, that with respect to this matter of educating your taste buds, many of us go to classes to learn to do so with respect to the following things: alcohol, wine, beer, chocolate, coffee, tea, olive oil, right? Luxury products in a way, products that are regarded as recreational. We don't go to learn how to taste bread, for instance, or many other things. It's interesting to me that we understand that we can learn that a $60 bottle of wine is better than the $5 bottle that we used to enjoy, right? And we think that's valuable, or some of us think that's valuable. It's interesting that we don't think it's valuable to learn how to taste a Dorito and realize that it's really sprayed on stuff on cardboard.
Yeah. Tumbled in everything makes you want more.
Yes, tumbled in everything that makes you want more.
These are ingredients that are on the chip specifically for a person, for somebody to want more.
Yes, which is a really powerful. And I was going to say, yes, I know Doritos don't have sugar in them, but I'm wrong, aren't I?
Oh, they do?
Of course they do.
Yes.
Of course they do.
A lot.
Of course they do. Is there any difference in making choices such as honey, maple, birch, or other sources of sugar? Is there any difference at all in those choices? Obviously, they're luxurious in many ways. They're a higher price point for the most part, yes. Do they have other important differences in how they affect us, in how we experience them, in how they are going to affect us bodily? Or is it just...
Like a substitute? Or
in this, I don't know how to put words. I don't know whether I should put words in this
using- or
person's mouth, but
using it. Yeah. I mean,
using
there
it
are
instead
benefits.
of.
Like
Yeah.
if you have honey from a farmer that they're raw, unfiltered, and it has all of the benefits of the honey in it, that's very good for you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same thing. It's not to overconsume it. The sweetening power is the same.
Yeah, in terms of the type of sugar in honey or table sugar, the difference is pretty small. It has slightly higher amount of fructose. That's why it's a bit more sweeter, more fruity. It has some minerals and some vitamins, but again, the issue is the dose, how much. So, but we should treat honey not too differently from other type of sugars, except, use it in a moderate amount, as you said earlier.
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I would just add that, from the addiction standpoint, the research has shown that it's the sweet taste that's driving the addiction-like response in the brain, so it's the sweet taste that drives dopamine. So it doesn't matter if that sweet taste is coming from honey or agave nectar or fruit concentrate or whatever fancy other name you want to call these sweeteners, it's still going to release dopamine and cause these behavioral changes that are akin to what happens during an addiction.
Yeah, I would be most careful about agave syrup because it has highest fructose concentration.
Yeah.
Almost 100% fructose.
Yeah.
Go ahead. It's not necessarily a very popular suggestion, but Wegovy and the other
Ozempic
inhibitors, I'm not enthusiastic about suggesting a pharmaceutical solution to this, but I have to say that it may be a more effective intervention in changing tastes and metabolic impacts of sugar than any other.
Yeah, this kind of drugs are, really powerful in terms of weight loss and cardiovascular disease prevention. And they also change your relationship with food. So substantially reduce cravings and reduce consumption of sugary, ultra-processed foods. And some people actually are able to follow more healthy dietary patterns, like the Mediterranean diet or other type of healthy diets. But certainly, the drug therapy is not panacea. It has side effects. More than 50% of people have GI side effects. And also, some people have said, this kind of drugs make me enjoying food much less. Is that a good thing? That's the reason we reduce their food consumption.
Well,
but then, said beautifully, food is pleasure, it's comfort, it's a very important part of our daily life. If you enjoy food much less, and then is that part of pleasure will be taken away? I don't know. It varies, of course, tremendously across different individuals.
I would say that one of the perhaps unintended consequences of the increase in the use and the popularity of GLP-1 agonist drugs is that the food industry is responding to that. They're realizing that there is a sector of people now that don't want giant portion sizes. They don't want these overly decadent, super sweet products. They want something that's smaller, that's going to have more fiber, and that's going to have protein in it.
Yeah.
And so there is a push now to have GLP-1 friendly food products, and the food industry is working to make sure that those are available. And so I think if anything, those are things we could all use, whether or not we're taking a GLP-1 drug or not. So I think that could be a potential, as you suggested, mechanism to kind of get us on the track of perhaps, going down this route of changing the consumer demand for these highly sweet, large portion food products.
Here's a question that's sort of an all play, I think. Are there issues in sugar that you think demand more research or attention of some sort right now from industry, from academe? Are there some ideas that are dominating the research scene which could temporarily fall down the priority list, or some that are being ignored that shouldn't be, perhaps in the current climate? And again, that's whether you're working in industry or whether you're working in academe.
Yeah, I think the novel sugar substitutes are a really important area to continue to explore. So, I mean, there's artificial sweeteners, there's high-intensity chemicals. It's not a good idea to flood them in our food system, even though some people may still benefit from it. But some natural ones, not high-intensity sweeteners. Yesterday I mentioned the monk fruit extract. The monk fruit is a fruit actually growing in southern part of China. It has been used in traditional Chinese medicine for hundreds of years. So it's very safe, and it's much sweeter than the regular sugar. And it's now become more and more popular in the U.S. and around the world as a sugar substitute, but it's more expensive. I mean, because the production is much less. Another one is the new one that we talked about yesterday is allulose. It's also a rare sugar, natural sugar from fruits, and it's extracted directly from fruits, and it doesn't have the bitter aftertaste like the stevia. Stevia is also naturally derived from sweetener. So I think those are potentially more viable, more healthier alternatives to the artificial sweeteners or added sugar, but they have to be made more affordable, and of course more studies need to be conducted to look at their long-term effects.
I have a question for the physicians. Has there been a well worked out set of studies comparing the insulin responses of these different artificial?
Yeah. There are many studies on insulin responses, and the high-intensity sweeteners, even though it doesn't induce any glucose response, still induce insulin response, because when you taste very sweet taste, and then the brain saw the sugar is coming, so it tells the pancreas to produce insulin, so-called cephalic insulin response.
So the notion that the artificial sweeteners are necessarily going to make a big dent in metabolic syndrome and diabetes may be overstated, right?
Well, so for the newer generation, the novel sweeteners I just mentioned, like monk fruit extract, allulose, it seems that they are much better in terms not just glucose response, but also insulin response.
I see.
And also the monk fruit, as mentioned earlier, has been used for hundreds of years in traditional Chinese medicine, not just for metabolic diseases, for other conditions as well. So the safety, I think, is relatively established. But again, I mean, when you make into commercial products, there need to be very rigorous studies on the long-term safety issues and health effects.
I think the barrier there is going to be, for at least the next several years, the cost, because allulose is very expensive. That's why you don't see it widely used. Although I think the price is going to come down, because my understanding is that now people are deriving allulose from corn. So it's not just coming from raisins and some other places where it was naturally found. But yeah, I think to kind of have these sort of new age, if you will, alternative sweeteners become more popular that maybe don't have the metabolic damage that some of the older ones do, it's going to take time and it's going to be costly, but we'll have to see.
And there are other products like fruits. You know, I went to a trade show recently. It's called the Expo West show in California. There are some really interesting products, and there's a ton of products, but I was just walking aisles and I came across a company that was taking an African fruit and processing it into a powder. I don't remember the name of it, but I have their literature at home. But I thought that was very interesting because, off and on I think about developing a product that has an alternative sweetener in it. And this fruit was very interesting because there was nothing else added to it. But I didn't have the chance to really look into it and see how it was processed. But there's a company in California called Wonderful. So Wonderful is known for their pomegranates, their seedless lemons and such now, huge company. But they started processing their waste. And I just was talking to the sales rep, and I was asking him about, other things that they did with, they had a fruit powder, and I said, do you have something else that could be used as an alternative sweetener? And he had it hidden under his counter, but he was like, oh yeah, I have this. And I thought that was very interesting because it had a very good flavor to it. Yes, it's a waste product for them, but it was sweet and it wasn't processed much more beyond drying and pulverizing. And, we were talking about monk fruit. So monk fruit I know as the Chinese herb, and it is, when you eat the fruit, it's very, very sweet. And it's just a high sensation of sweetness, which can satisfy this urge for sweetness. The problem that I have with produced monk fruit here, the powder, it's very hard to get monk fruit on its own, 100% monk fruit. It's always mixed with something else like erythritol. So then I don't know enough about erythritol to say, well, I don't mind eating it to get the monk fruit, but it's difficult and very expensive to find monk fruit just on its own. But I think, if we explore and have more options for these types of products, this would be very interesting as other types of alternatives. Whether or not they work in processes like me for baking and such, that's different. We would have to see how the behavior is in a kitchen.
This is really interesting. Professor Hu talked briefly at dinner last night about the whole planet diet, the notion of a diet that would be, or healthy planet. The idea of a diet that says not just healthy for me, but healthy for the entire planet. And as I listen to thinking about the mass production of monk fruit, I think about the quinoa disaster, right, in which suddenly a food is unavailable to an indigenous population because it comes too expensive. On the other hand, I think about processing a waste product into sugar or a sweetener, and I think, well, that sounds like a kind of a good idea. What's going to be wrong with it? I turn it over to Phil.
We probably have time for one more question.
We do have time for one more question?
In conclusion.
Okay. In conclusion, let me see. What does Jackson want me to ask? When looking back, this is a light one. When looking back on your career and research, is there anything you wish you had focused on earlier? And this is perhaps a question you can answer for the students in the room who will know that they should start doing it right now.
Let me start. But before I answer this question, I just want to say that in terms of healthy beverages, a major public health priority is still how to promote water consumption, right? I mean, it's an old, boring question, but it's still very important, especially among children. So, a study published in Germany, I think it's a really interesting study, said wanted to promote water consumption among middle school, high school students. They just didn't just tell the students to drink more water, give them education material. They actually install water fountains around the school, make it beautiful. I mean, not a yucky fountain water fountains, and then give them water bottles. And then the study lasted more than 1 year. They found that the schools changed the water environment, had a significant increase in water consumption and a decrease in SSB consumption. So this kind of environmental approach is certainly much more impactful than, individual behaviors, including, changing the different kind of sweeteners. So that's something I think we should continue to do research and hopefully can make policy changes.
Does anyone want to tackle my question, my last question, or are we going to let Phil wrap us up? Please, Professor Casimir.
Yes, I would like to add, after hearing the whole set of possible change and progresses you're talking about, that one of the weak points of all things that was said here is that when the sugar industry in general is making progress, they tend to increase their dumping of bad products in our countries. Sufficient to look at, let's say, the breakfast in Haiti of the common family who used to eat, let's say, for instance, cassava bread and peanut butter. Now they eat spaghetti and cornflakes, etc., etc. And this gives to the food industry producing bad things for you more resources to keep functioning. This is one of the elements I've been thinking while listening the whole set of progress you're doing, the increase in dumping in our country, sometimes promoted from very high level, by the way.
Yes. 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 Good point.
Well, thank you to all of our panelists and conference speakers. I think this is an incredible conference. Let's give them a round of applause. We have reached the end of our formal program, thanks to the live audience here in person and people watching on the live stream. Just a reminder to you, if you want to go back and watch these lectures, they are all archived on our page. The live stream will be available very shortly. It doesn't take them long to put it up. It'll be available sometime later on this evening. Another brief reminder, this is an annual conference, so we would love to have you back. Next year is the Mighty Mississippi Currents of Change, and the year following that is a conference that's tentatively entitled Automation and the Future of Work Involves Artificial Intelligence, Machine Robotics, and Human-Machine Interaction. So stop back and see us again. And you can replay these as often as you like. If you do post on social media, please include the tag #Nobel Conference.
Cool.
Thank you all very much for coming.
Yep.
Hey, this is it. This is the conclusion of the 61st Annual Nobel Conference at Gustavus Adolphus College. This has been a tremendous couple of days. One last time, I'm Tane Danger.
I'm Maggie Kurth.
So we just wrapped up. We're not going to take a ton of time here. Any last things like you just want to...
No, that was just such an amazing conference, and
Right.
I am really looking forward to next year's on the Mississippi River ecosystems.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, this is, it's funny. Every year there's a way in which it's like, what are they going to talk about? This is one that I just think there's so many possibilities, right? Like
Yes.
there's so many different kinds of things.
Yeah, there's very obviously like 15 bazillion tracks, and I'm
Right.
really excited about that.
And you and I are already like aiming for, will they let us do the live stream from a river boat? Yes.
God willing.
Yes, please. You can support. No, our technical crew really doesn't like this idea. They are making faces at us. But here's what I'm going to say: the Nobel Conference is supported by a wonderful endowment from
RJ Foundation.
Say that one more time.
A wonderful endowment from the RJ Foundation.
That is absolutely true.
And also the late Reverend Drell and Adeline Berenson.
That is totally true. But you can also support the Nobel Conference. I mean, it can always use more support, especially if we're going to have to buy a steamship.
Oh, we don't have to buy it. They rent them out.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I've been on a ukulele cruise. It's great.
That's great. And we are also going to need money for the ukulele band that will come
Yes,
with us.
absolutely.
I don't know. It is going to be a very serious conference next year. We're having a little fun because we're at the end of 2 days. But this is going to be great. We're going to be back for year 62 of the Nobel Conference. 2 amazing days of conference talks by some of the greatest thinkers in the world on everything to do with the ecology of rivers, and specifically the Mississippi River.
History, economics, all sorts of things open up there.
Exactly. Mark Twain, I feel like, is going to get name dropped a lot. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'm reading The Innocents Abroad right now, so you can expect.
Yeah, you'll be ready.
I'm ready.
And I hope that you all are ready too, and you join us for next year's Nobel Conference. But thank you all so much for being part of this whole set of amazing lectures and panel discussions. It has been an honor to spend this time with you. Really a pleasure. Maggie Kurth, this is such a joy for me to get here and get to just sort of listen to you unpack these really important big thoughts with me.
Thank you so much. It's always a joy to spend this time with you because you know how to actually talk to a camera.
I know, as I look at the wrong camera.
No, you are so good at this, and I love being a part of this every year.
Okay, that's it. That's us for Nobel Conference 61 from Gustavus Adolphus College. Thank you all so much for being part of it. Thank you to everybody who attended. Thank you to everybody who watched online with us. Thank you to the amazing technical crew, all of the presenters, everybody who makes the Nobel Conference happen. It's amazing. We hope that you'll join us either on the live stream or come to campus next year for Nobel Conference 62, all about the mighty Mississippi River. But until then, we'll say goodbye. I'm Tane Danger.
I'm Maggie Kurth.
Thank you all so much. Be well, and we'll see you next year.
Yeah.